Hello everyone, I am very glad that you're joining this story. Subscribe, like and comment. Enjoy the story, smile more often.
There's a kind of silence that settles into your bones when something small hits you hard enough to shatter something you thought was unbreakable, something you've spent years building with every ounce of patience and love you've got left in the tank. It doesn't come in screaming, it doesn't crash through the windows like a storm, it just seeps in slow and quiet, curling around your chest and settling behind your ribs until you can barely breathe through it. That was the kind of silence I sat in the moment my daughter, no, the girl I had raised like a daughter, looked up from her math homework and told me, plain as anything, that I wasn't her real dad. And that her real dad, her other father, was way better than me. It wasn't just the words. It was the way she said it, like she was telling me what she wanted on her pizza. Not with anger or spite, not with malice even, just complete, thoughtless honesty. A child repeating what she's heard often enough to believe. She didn't even look at me when she said it, just kept working through a division problem like she hadn't just carved a new hole in my chest with one sentence. I'd known Lily since she was 2. Diapers, tantrums, night terrors, birthday parties where only 2 kids showed up, and first days of school where she clung to me so hard I had to peel her off like Velcro just to get her through the door. She called me Dad before she even really understood what the word meant. I taught her how to ride a bike, how to hold a fork the right way, how to brush her teeth without gagging herself. I sat through ballet recitals that felt longer than most wars, took her to the dentist when Jessica couldn't leave work, held her hand when she had the flu and threw up down the side of my shirt and cried because she thought I'd be mad. I wasn't mad. I was never mad. Not at her. But here we were, 10 years later, and suddenly none of that mattered. Ryan, her biological father, had been a ghost for most of her life. In and out of Jessica's orbit when she was younger, but never in a way that stuck. He showed up again last year, just long enough to flash a winning smile, rent a boat for the weekend, buy Lily a phone she didn't need, and somehow convince Jessica that he'd changed. I wasn't consulted. I wasn't even warned. I came home from work one evening and found him in the living room, sitting on the couch I bought, eating from my bowl of trail mix like we were old friends catching up. He stood up, gave me a big grin, reached out for a handshake I didn't return, and said, "It's been a while, man." That was the beginning of the unraveling. Jessica told me she wanted Lily to have both her dads in her life, like we were just coexisting, like we could all play nice and pretend this wasn't a slow-motion betrayal. At first, I bit my tongue, told myself it wasn't about me. That Lily deserved to know where she came from. But that didn't last. Ryan started showing up more and more, weekends, school events, the occasional Tuesday when Jessica wasn't feeling up to dinner, and suddenly he was the fun one. The exciting one. The one who didn't have to worry about schedules or homework or boundaries. And I was the backup singer in a band I started. So when Lily looked at me across the table and told me I wasn't her real dad, I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't even stand up. I just nodded once, gently closed her math book, and told her she could finish it with her mom. Then I walked into the kitchen, grabbed my jacket, and stepped outside into the cold air because I needed to breathe somewhere that didn't stink of betrayal. Jessica followed me 10 minutes later. She didn't say much. Just that Lily didn't mean it. That she was confused. That I was still important. I asked her why she didn't say anything when it happened. Why she let it hang in the air like I deserved it. She said, "It's not my job to tell her how to feel." And that right there, that was the moment I knew something had broken that couldn't be glued back together. That night, I didn't sleep in our bed. I made up the couch, turned off my phone, and stared at the ceiling until morning. My heart wasn't pounding. It wasn't rage that kept me up. It was clarity. I had spent over a decade stepping up for someone else's child, loving her like she was my own, never asking for anything back except to be seen, to be acknowledged, to be heard. And now I had been heard. Loud and clear. The next morning, I brewed my coffee, sat down with my laptop, and opened a new browser tab. In the search bar, I typed "family law attorney near me." Because if I wasn't her real dad, then maybe it was time to stop pretending I ever had to be. There's a strange kind of peace that comes from letting go of something you've held onto too tightly for too long, like unclenching your fist after years of bracing for impact, or exhaling a breath you didn't know you'd been holding. That's how I felt the morning I told Jessica I was done playing the role of father, chauffeur, tutor, therapist, cheerleader, and every other title that came along with being the guy who actually stuck around when the diapers needed changing and the lights had to stay on. I said it without yelling, without accusation, and without a single tear in my voice, which I think surprised her more than anything else. She blinked, like she wasn't sure if she'd heard me right. Then she tilted her head and asked, "What do you mean you're done?" So I clarified it in a way even she couldn't misinterpret. I said, "You said Ryan was her father." Lily said it. "You let her say it. So now, he can step up. I'm done." She didn't react the way I expected. No apology. No panic. Just this smug little exhale through her nose, like she'd finally won some long-standing competition I didn't realize we were playing. "Okay," she said, "I guess that's fair." She said it like someone confirming a haircut appointment, not like someone watching a man who helped raise her daughter quietly walk off the emotional battlefield. That same day, I stopped picking Lily up from school. I canceled our weekend library trip. I turned off the smart home notifications on my phone so I didn't have to see her getting home late from dance practice or leaving the fridge open again. I didn't tell Lily goodbye. I didn't lecture her. I didn't say a damn thing. I just disappeared from the routine she used to rely on, the way I'd once disappeared from my own happiness without anyone noticing. Then, I got to work. I had been putting off dealing with the finances for too long. Like a lot of people who love too deeply, I hadn't kept track of just how many lines had blurred over the years. I was paying for her school supplies, her clothes, half the groceries, even her monthly streaming subscriptions, and I wasn't legally her father. Not on paper. I never adopted her. Jessica said we didn't need to. Said it was just paperwork. But paperwork is funny like that. It doesn't cry. It doesn't play favorites. It just proves things when people forget who showed up. I started separating everything. I moved my paycheck into a new checking account. I canceled the automatic transfer that sent money into Lily's college savings. I closed the Disney trip I had planned for spring break, the one with the princess breakfast and the hotel that cost more per night than I used to pay in rent. I'd put down a $500 deposit, but that was gone now. Jessica, when she found out, rolled her eyes and said, "You never follow through anyway," like she hadn't watched me sit up until midnight comparing flight prices and booking reservations around her work schedule. I didn't respond. I just nodded. I let her believe what she needed to believe. Meanwhile, Ryan was supposed to take Lily for his first official weekend. He'd promised to take her to an amusement park 2 hours away. Bought the tickets. Told everyone. Even posted about it online. Then Saturday came, and he didn't show up. Jessica said it was car trouble. Lily said it was fine, she didn't want to go anyway. The next weekend, it was a work emergency. After that, it was he's been really stressed lately. I kept my mouth shut. Let them spin the excuses. Let the shine fade on its own. I started keeping quiet records, not to use in court, but because I wanted the numbers to remind me of what I was worth. I went back over my bank statements, year by year, and estimated that I'd paid about $3,000 per year toward Lily's care, not counting rent, just the stuff directly tied to her. That's over 11 years. That comes out to around $26,000 total. Yes, I know it's not exact. Math was never my strongest subject. Jessica started to flinch every time Ryan disappointed Lily. She started avoiding eye contact with me. Started sending texts that said things like, "It's not what you think," or "He really does care." But she never said sorry. Not once. Then one night, a few weeks into this new arrangement, she came into the kitchen while I was eating alone and leaned on the counter like we were still partners. She said, "Maybe we should try co-parenting again. You and me. Just for her sake." I looked up, set down my fork, and said, "No thanks. I think you've got this." And for the first time in years, I watched her face fall in a way that looked a whole lot like regret, but I wasn't about to offer her a chair at the table she'd spent months pushing me away from. There's a very specific kind of chaos that happens when a man who's never done the hard part of parenting suddenly tries to play hero without the slightest idea what the job actually costs. And I don't just mean in dollars, though we'll get to that too. I mean the time, the patience, the mental load, the 1 million little things that never show up in the Instagram photo of the dad tossing a smiling kid into the air like he's Superman on weekends. Ryan liked to look like Superman. But not once did I see him hold the cape when it got wet or heavy or inconvenient. It took less than a month for the cracks to start showing, and I'll admit, it was kind of surreal watching it all from the outside. At first, Ryan was all big promises and loud entrances. He'd show up to pick Lily up in a borrowed car with loud music blasting, show up late, but still wearing a grin like a prizefighter. He took her to a trampoline park and let her skip homework. He bought her a phone case with LED lights and told her school didn't matter as long as she had street smarts. Jessica ate it up like it was a rom-com reboot, watching him charm Lily like nothing that happened between them a decade ago even counted. I kept my distance. I watched with polite interest, like someone flipping channels during a reality show meltdown. The first time Jessica reached out, it was casual. She texted, "Hey, Lily's backpack ripped. Can you grab one next time you're out?" I waited an hour, then replied with 5 words I'd been saving for just the right moment. "Ask her real dad, Jessica." She didn't reply. A week later, she called. She said Ryan's hours had been cut, that money was tight, and Lily needed new cleats for soccer. I said, "I understand. Best of luck." She hung up. I didn't hear from her again for a while, but I started hearing things from Lily's school. Not directly, of course, no one knew I was out of the picture yet. I still got the automated voicemails and the parent portal emails. First it was a missing assignment, then a skipped quiz, then a behavioral note about disruption and talking back. The kid who used to sit at the kitchen table with her pencils perfectly lined up now had grades sliding like wet spaghetti off a plate. And still, Ryan smiled. Still, he posted. "So proud of this girl." One caption read, with a photo of Lily holding a milkshake that probably cost more than a week's worth of lunches. It had 2 straws in it, like they were some perfect father-daughter duo from a sitcom that would get canceled after 1 season. Then came the rent. Jessica left me a voicemail late one Friday night. Her voice was quieter than usual, like she'd finally remembered how to sound embarrassed. She said she was short on rent. That Ryan had promised to cover it, but something came up. That Lily couldn't go without electricity or food. I didn't respond. I didn't call back. I didn't forward the voicemail to Ryan, though I considered it. Instead, I logged into my accounts and closed the last of the shared credit cards. I had been dragging my feet on that one, some old muscle memory in me still trying to be the guy who made things easier, but it was time. The only things I wanted to make easy were boundaries. 2 weeks later, there was a parent-teacher night at Lily's school. I wasn't invited, of course, but I still had access to the calendar. Out of curiosity, I drove by the school at the scheduled time, just to see if Ryan would show up. I parked across the street and waited. Teachers stood at the doors with name tags and clipboards. Parents trickled in with folders and nervous smiles. I waited 35 minutes. He never showed. Jessica didn't either. I drove home in silence. That night, I got another text from Jessica. Just 6 words this time. "I made a mistake, I'm sorry." I stared at it for a long time. Thought about the way she stood in our kitchen, smug and certain. Thought about the look on Lily's face when she called someone else her dad. Thought about every single time I paid for something quietly, every school concert I clapped at, every dentist appointment I sat through while holding a trembling hand. And then I replied, "I know." So did I. I turned off my phone, poured myself a drink, and sat in the dark, listening to the hum of the fridge and the distant sound of silence finally staying where it belonged. It happened on a Tuesday. Not a holiday, not a special date, not the kind of moment that usually earns a bookmark in your brain, but somehow I'll remember it forever because it was the day Lily finally asked me the question I had been waiting for. The one I knew was coming but still hit like it had teeth. We were in the driveway. I was loading a few old boxes into the back of my car, clearing out the last of my things from the garage, finally closing a chapter that had been dragging on longer than it should have. She came outside without shoes on, in her school sweatshirt, arms wrapped around herself like armor that wouldn't hold. She stood there for a long time before she spoke. I didn't say anything. I wasn't going to break the silence for her. Not this time. "Why don't you want to be around anymore?" she asked. She didn't shout it. She didn't cry. She just said it like she honestly wanted to know, like it hadn't occurred to her until just that moment that people don't always come back. I took a breath, closed the hatchback, and leaned against the car because I didn't trust myself to stand straight otherwise. I looked at her and felt everything I'd been bottling up since the day she called me not her real dad bubbling just under the surface. But I didn't explode. I didn't unravel. I just told her the truth. "I was never pretending, Lily," I said slowly. "I wasn't playing a role. I was your dad. In every way that mattered. I showed up. I paid for things. I held your hand when you were sick. I stayed up with you during storms. I cheered for you when no one else clapped. I didn't do any of that for credit or points or because it was expected. I did it because I loved you. And then one day, you looked at me and said I wasn't your real dad. And you meant it." She opened her mouth to argue, but I held up a hand and shook my head. "You can't just say something like that and expect it to go away, Lily. That word? Dad? It's not a toy you throw around when you feel like it. You don't just get to unfather someone and then ask why they're not around anymore. That word meant everything to me. And when you tossed it aside like it was a pair of shoes you outgrew, it broke something in me that I don't think I can fix." Her lips were trembling now, eyes glassy, and for a split second she looked exactly like she had at age 4, when she scraped her knee on the driveway and ran to me with open arms and snot on her face. And for a second, I felt that old pull step in, fix it, protect her from the hurt. But I didn't move. "I didn't mean it," she said, voice barely a whisper. I didn't know what it meant. I was just mad. "I know," I said, my voice quiet too. "But I wasn't mad when I raised you. I didn't get to walk away because I was hurt. I stayed. I stayed longer than I probably should have. And now I'm done." Behind her, I saw Jessica watching through the kitchen window. She didn't move. Just stood there, arms folded, probably thinking this was dramatic or unnecessary. She didn't know what I'd already done behind the scenes. A month earlier, while she and Ryan were trying to juggle late bills and make half-hearted apologies, I filed a motion with the court to terminate my legal guardianship. It was quiet, clean, and done with no fanfare. The judge reviewed the case, saw there was no legal adoption, no active parenting relationship, and no reason to continue support. No one fought it. Jessica never even showed up for the hearing. It was finalized last week. I was free. Not just emotionally. Legally. Jessica found out 2 days later, after she tried to contact my lawyer asking about potential co-parenting logistics and was politely informed that I was no longer a party to those matters. She texted me furious messages, left voicemails, accused me of abandonment. I didn't answer any of them, because I didn't abandon anyone. I simply walked away from a table where my place had already been cleared. I looked at Lily one last time and said, "I didn't stop loving you. But I had to start loving myself more." She looked stunned. Like that concept didn't fit in her vocabulary. Like she hadn't thought of me as someone who had a heart that could get tired. I didn't blame her. That was my fault too. I got into my car, closed the door, sat there for a moment while she stood in the driveway, blinking back tears and biting her lip like she might say something else. Then I pulled out. And just as I was halfway down the street, I heard it, faint, but clear. "Wait, Dad." I felt my chest cave just a little. Just a flicker. I gripped the wheel tighter. But I didn't turn around. Because some things can be broken clean. And some lessons only stick when the silence gets the last word. It's strange how fast a year can pass when you're finally breathing again, when your body isn't constantly bracing for the next emotional hit, when your mornings are no longer shaped by someone else's moods or your evenings twisted into quiet avoidance. I moved across the state 8 months ago, to a town small enough that I still wave to strangers and quiet enough that the loudest thing I hear most days is the train that rolls through twice a day with that slow, deliberate rumble that reminds me the world is always moving forward, whether I'm ready or not. I didn't leave in the middle of the night or slam any doors on my way out. I packed my things over a couple of weekends, loaded up my car, and gave the keys to a property manager who handles the rental now. Jessica never responded to the note I left on the kitchen table. I didn't expect her to. It was short. Just said, "I'm not angry anymore, but I am done. Take care of her or don't. But I won't be there to fix what gets broken again." In this new town, I started volunteering at a community center. Nothing dramatic, nothing headline-worthy. Just a couple nights a week, helping with homework, teaching basic coding to kids who'd never seen their name on a certificate before, driving a few of them home when their caseworkers were running behind. Some of the kids are in foster care, some in group homes, some just stuck in that in-between where they're not quite anyone's responsibility but still hoping someone sees them. I never planned on it becoming anything permanent, but it turns out when you spend over a decade learning how to love a child without conditions, that part of your heart doesn't just shut off when someone tells you they don't want it anymore. No one here knows much about my past. A few people know I used to be married. One woman asked if I had any kids, and I told her, once. Kind of. She didn't ask for more, and I didn't offer it. The thing is, there's no easy way to explain to someone how you were a father and then weren't. There's no Hallmark card for that. No category in therapy intake forms. No checkbox on tax documents. Just a kind of phantom limb pain in your chest, and you learn to stop reaching for something that isn't there. Every few weeks, I get a letter from Lily. No return address, no stamps, just slipped into the mailbox at the center with my name in her handwriting, sometimes scrawled and angry, sometimes neat and scared-looking. The first one was just a page ripped out of a notebook with "Why did you leave me?" written in all caps. The next was blank. Then there was one with an apology scratched out so hard the pen had ripped through the paper. I've saved them all. Not because I know what to do with them, but because part of me still wants to believe that she'll eventually write something that sounds like the girl I used to know, before everyone else's voice got louder than mine. I haven't written back. I've wanted to, plenty of times. But every time I sit down to try, I realize I wouldn't be doing it for her. I'd be doing it for the version of me who still wishes it had gone differently. And that man doesn't live here anymore. A few weeks ago, I got a message from someone I didn't recognize. A shared contact at the old school must have passed along my new email. The message was short. No greeting, no closure. Just the facts. Ryan was arrested. DUI, second offense. Jessica is working nights now. Lily's in therapy. She's having a hard time. That's it. No, thought you should know. No plea for help. Just an information drop, like they wanted to plant the seed and see if it grew into anything. It didn't. I closed the email and didn't open it again. I still think about Lily every day. I don't lie to myself and say I've stopped caring. I don't pretend I don't replay the good years, her first piano recital, the way she used to ask if I could check her math before bedtime, the handmade Father's Day cards with stick figures and glue dots. That stuff's permanent. It's tattooed on me whether I want it to be or not. But thinking about her and going back to that house, that role, that chaos, those are two different things. Now, I sit in a park most afternoons after the center closes, coffee in hand, watching a group of teens from the program pound on a set of old drums someone donated last year. They're not great, offbeat, out of sync, but they're trying, and they laugh through it. One kid, maybe 13, looked up at me the other day after sticking a rhythm and asked, "Are you anybody's dad?" And I just sat there a second too long before answering. I could have lied. I could have said yes. I could have said no. But instead, I said, "Used to be." He nodded, didn't push, just went back to tapping on the snare like I'd said something profound. Maybe I had. I stayed a little longer that day, helped them pack up, handed out a few bottled waters, reminded one of them to call their caseworker before heading out. And on the walk home, I thought about the next kid I might help. The next rhythm I might help someone find. because the next one I choose will never have to question it.